Yo, this is Steve Bloom, and you're watching Moana Nui Podcast. We'll be starting soon. Don't go anywhere.
Aloha mai kakou, everyone. Hello, how are you all doing tonight? I am excited to be here this evening for another week of the Moana Nui Podcast. Tonight we are doing our monthly mental health series with Shae Reigns, as we know it as Rain Talks. And for those who may not have tuned into our show, and this is your first time joining us, welcome. E komo mai. Ray is a licensed therapist. Shae. Shae is a licensed therapist, and she comes on every last Thursday of the month to talk about different mental health topics to help us navigate our everyday lives. And so I'm excited to have her on tonight. But before I have her join me here in the studio, I just wanted to say hello. My name is Moana. I'm the host and founder of the Moana Nui Podcast. I'm also a children's book author for Adventures of Nakoa and Nohea. We are currently in production on our second book, Shadows of the Ancient, which we successfully funded on Kickstarter in December. So we're getting really close to sending our book off to the printer. And I'm really excited for you guys to see that here shortly, hopefully in the next week or two. And we will be opening up pre-orders again via BackerKit for those who missed the campaign. So be on the lookout for that. And there's a bunch of other projects that are available on Kickstarter right now that you should check out. And I'll try to see if we can talk about those at the end. But for now, it looks like Shae is in the background and she's ready. Let me bring her on to join me here.
Yes. Hello. I am so grateful for your patience. We're having some consistent rainstorms this week, and the traffic is backed up to ridiculosity.
Yeah, it's bad enough without the rain, right?
Right. And so it slowed me down a little bit more today, but I'm here. So thank you so much for your patience. I'm really excited about this topic. I really wanted to make sure that I got to be here for this because I think this is one of those things that it's a word that we like to throw around a lot, right? With no real attachment to, I guess, what it really means, what it can really mean on the inside, you know? And the word, in case you know, our audience does not know what today's topic is deserving.
Yes.
Or to deserve something. So I wanted to start out basically with, you know, the simple Google definition of what deserve means, or to deserve means. And it's a value statement. So what it means, according to Google, is do something or have or show qualities worthy of reward or punishment. And the reason why it's really important to understand that, am I frozen, or are you frozen, Moana?
No, I think.
Okay, I can still hear you. I can still hear you, but
sorry, guys.
The image was frozen. This was like, oh no. Like I said, rainstorms, so I don't know if that's going to get in the way.
No,
my internet's also a little bit slow because of them. Oh dear. Okay, so while we wait for Moana to get back there, I'm the one having the storms, Moana. You're not allowed to disappear on me.
I know, sorry. Internet friends are fake.
But yeah, so that's the definition of deserving. And the reason why it's really important to understand is that's a value statement. So one of the simple ways, the simple question that I like to ask is the blanket statement, you should get what you deserve, right? You can hear that statement, and depending on who's saying it and who they're saying it to will determine how it is that you choose to interpret that statement. So for example, if you're talking to someone who you believe really loves you, really cares about you, that statement coming to you would suggest, oh, you want the best for me. But if that's someone who maybe your relationship is a little bit questionable, maybe you haven't done whatever it is that you think they think you should have done for them, or maybe they haven't been the best to you. The way how you interpret that wish, so to speak, is going to be on the negative side. It's because you're going to be thinking, oh, what do you think I deserve? Right? You're going to be wondering or believing that what they're actually saying is that they want something bad to happen to you. And it's a very subjective kind of statement to make. And how we interpret or how we accept that when it's said to us, and then the energy that we use when we say it to others can be detrimental either way, in either direction, to our own health, to our own understanding and appreciation of our own personal value. So I wanted to have this conversation because I had this conversation with one of my clients, and they found it really valuable, I guess, to have the perspective provided for them that when we say something like, oh, I don't deserve this, what we're thinking is, whatever it is that's going wrong, and sometimes, depending on where we are, whatever it is that's going right, we're thinking that whatever that thing is something that we do or don't deserve. It's something that we are worthy of or not worthy of. And it's really important, especially from a mental health perspective, that we understand that, number one, for all intents and purposes, the only person who can decide what your worth is, what your value is you. So the best way to combat the idea of deserving is to recognize that what you believe someone deserves, or what they believe, whoever they may be, you deserve, is largely irrelevant. So really the question is, or rather the statement should actually be a question. Well, what do you deserve? What do you think you deserve? And then you want to move forward from that perspective instead of maybe taking on an assessment of your value or your worth based on what someone else may think or believe. Does that make sense? Sorry, I'm reading the comments here. Or at least looking to read the comments. So anyway, I wanted to make sure, because I guess we lost Mo again. Hold on one second.
I don't know what's going on tonight.
Okay, you're back. Yay.
Sorry.
That is so weird. So now, and then when you get off, like when it, I guess when you get kicked out, I think it might actually be ending this, like actually kicking off the show. Are we staying connected? Hello?
I'm here. Disregard my bipolar. Just keep going.
I see you telling me to keep going. So basically, I was about to open up for questions so that for that point. Okay.
Yeah, the stream is still live. It should. Sorry. I missed the point. What was the question? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just asking if I was making sense, but I don't know how much of what I said even went through. And then the reason why I was saying I'm not sure if we're staying connected when you go off is because the rest of the chat didn't come back in until you came back in on the window.
Oh.
So there were no comments, and then you came back in, and then a whole bunch of comments came in at the same time.
Probably me saying sorry.
Huh?
Comment saying I'm sorry. But it's going to, it's showing up as a bunch. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
Yeah, so even if I drop off, the stream should still be going because I'm watching. I have it on my Twitch channel, and you're still on. My internet is acting bipolar.
Okay, that's good to know. Tell your internet to get some counseling and maybe some medication. But yeah, so what I was asking is if it makes sense when I say that basically in order to combat the feeling of maybe, we'll say, worthlessness when someone else says, oh, you don't deserve that. Or when you think to yourself that you don't deserve something, that a way to combat that would be to actually remember that the only person who can determine and define what it is that you're worth is you.
So when we worthless, that kind of imposter syndrome, or is this different in itself?
Your connection is not letting me actually hear an entire sentence. I'm getting some syllables and not all. Oh, the light is so bright. Anyway, so one of the other things that I wanted to also address when it comes to deserving is the idea of the external part of what we might deserve or what we might not deserve. So a lot of the idea of deserving comes from, like I said, a sense of worth, or what you think you're worth, what it is that you think you have earned, so to speak, right? And so let's say, for example, on any given day, you're coming from a place of insecurity, or maybe on that day you feel like you haven't done your absolute best. So on that day, you might be thinking to yourself, oh, if something bad happens or something negative comes to light, oh, I deserve that. Completely taking out of or away from the fact that every other day or any other time or several other times throughout your life, you've done, your absolute best, and you've had several successes, and you've made strides to move forward or upward. You might not be able to remember those moments in that moment, and it is just a moment of insecurity where you don't feel like you've done the absolute best. Moana asks if the feelings of worthlessness can be tied to imposter syndrome or if it's something separate. Absolutely, it can be tied to imposter syndrome. So let's say, for example, because when we had the conversation about imposter syndrome, a lot of what we were talking about had to do with like at in the workplace or at your job, right? And so you think that because everyone else seems to know what they're doing, or everyone else has been doing that job for however much longer than you are, or because the other person has this degree or that certification or what have you, that you don't, quote unquote, deserve to be in that position. You don't deserve to be in that job, right? And so that results in the imposter syndrome telling you, you don't belong here, right? And so when we're talking about deserving and we're asking the question of where some of those feelings come from, absolutely it can come from imposter syndrome. It can also result in imposter syndrome depending on the situation. It can be kind of a chicken or an egg kind of a question in many ways. And the way how, like I said, how you would want to combat that is, I would say, remembering, number one, the reason why you're in the position that you're in, whether it's, on the job or in your family life or in your friendships, or did you just win the lottery today? Whatever the case is, it's going to be because of some kind of an action that you made to get there. It's going to be because, in the case of, jobs and things like that, when someone else is making measuring the fit for that particular position, they've already decided that you do belong there. And so in situations like that, you want to be able to say to yourself, oh, okay, obviously in this particular case, the reason I've gotten here is because I've done this, and this, and there are these things that are on my resume. And you know what? Even if, because let's be real, sometimes there are things on a resume that aren't completely true. Even if the things that are on your resume aren't necessarily completely true, you still took the time to put in the application. You still made the energy to show up for the interview. You still had to prove yourself in several other ways in order to make sure that you would actually be able to be in the position that you're in. If this is a relationship that we're talking about, where, this is a friendship or a romantic relationship. So we're talking about being worthy of the person who you chose and who consequently chose you. They chose you for a reason, right? And so when you have been chosen, this can be a hard to swallow pill if you make it that way. But more often than not, the reason why people choose us has nothing to do, or not necessarily nothing, but a lot less to do with us and more to do with them. So especially in relationships, if we're talking about a relationship with a significant other or a friendship, it's not necessarily because they see you. It's because they see who you could be to them. And technically speaking, or literally speaking, more accurately, when that kind of evaluation is being made, that's not for us to say, right? We can't necessarily determine who we can be to someone else because, especially in our relationships, we don't know their life. We don't know their struggle, right? And so they get to say, oh, this person reflects the best version of whatever it is that they are imagining in their heads. And these are shoes, pants, boots, whatever that this person can fill. It doesn't actually matter whether we can or not. It just matters that they think we can. And then as time goes on and they actually get to start knowing not just the imagined version of ourselves that they put in these shoes, right? But also they get to know the actual person now. You know, they get to spend the time and have the conversations and so forth. Then they get to say, oh, well, maybe I was wrong. And considering you at some point chose to put those shoes on, right? Mm-hmm. Because chose to be chosen, you also get the opportunity to say, you know what? I don't like these shoes. I don't like these boots. I don't like this position. And you get to make the decision to move on. Especially when it comes to our relationships with other human beings, it's a give and take. And more often than not, it has to do with where we see ourselves when we're choosing to be chosen and where they, or the position that they think can fill, having, like I said, not as much to actually do with us as we might think. So when we're looking at these value statements of what we deserve, especially when it comes to our relationships, especially when it comes to material things, when it comes to praise, when it comes to, instant gratification, when it comes to all of these often very arbitrary things, the fact of the matter is, quite simply, it both isn't and is not about you. It's about what you've decided you deserve. If you decide today that you are a crappy person and you come from bad stock and I don't know, all of the negative things that a person can say about themselves, imagine that I just gave all of that as the example. If that is what you have decided you deserve, oh, I'm not smart enough, so I don't. Guess what? That's what you're going to get. And you're going to get lots and lots and lots of evidence over and over again proving exactly that. On the other hand, if we decide today that we deserve the absolute best, regardless of what anybody else thinks that we deserve, and now all of a sudden, because we deserve the absolute best, our efforts are going to be shown in that light. I'm not necessarily going to say that it's automatically going to result in, a Maserati showing up in the driveway. It's not necessarily going to manifest itself in a sack of money falling out of the sky, which, by the way, can actually be really painful if you're standing under it. But it will result in your seeing yourself in a different light and thus reflecting that light outside, which usually results in the light coming back to you that much more, even if it's not necessarily in the ways that we imagine them to be. I might have imagined myself, again, ginormous sack of money, right, falling from the sky, but because it's a part of my brain that's like a giant sack of money falling out of the sky, if I'm standing in the wrong position, it's going to fall on my head, I'm going to die, and then I'm not going to get to enjoy this giant sack of money. And so maybe I don't really want the sack of money to fall out of the sky. Maybe I don't mind working a little bit harder for it so that instead of falling out of the sky, it ends up in my bank account in the form of a direct deposit. You understand? Like, so our thoughts and what we imagine and what we are willing to put our effort towards will reflect itself in the way that we are willing to allow it to reflect to us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Is this what you're talking about right now? Would you say that's the same? It's essentially self-fulfilling prophecy.
Well, especially when it comes to things that we don't deserve, because it's so much easier to quote unquote manifest the things that are negative than it is the positive. For whatever reason, we are hardwired to notice the negative. And okay, let me not act like I don't know what the reason is. The reason for that is all sciencey and whatever, but fight, flight, freeze, reactions. In order to protect ourselves, that's why we see the negative first. That's the short version. There's a much longer version. Message my my social media if you want the long version. But yeah, it's a protection thing. So it's a whole lot easier to see when things are bad, because that way we can protect ourselves from it. And that also then results in, because we're higher beings now, it also results in our ability to quote unquote manifest the negative a lot easier too. I didn't make the rules, it just is what it is. And so a lot of times when we're looking at these things, it's like, oh, I want to be able to, if you're reading the self-help books and stuff, I want to be able to self-actualize, and I want to be able to manifest, what the universe has in store for me. But, right, if there's a part of your brain that is constantly telling you, you don't deserve this. And when I say there's a part of your brain, you might think it's somebody else's message. Let's say, for example, you have a parent or had a parent who was really negative your whole life, who spent your entire childhood telling you how worthless you actually are. At some point, whether it was then in childhood or whether you decided to agree in adulthood, you had to agree. On an emotional level, on a mental level, at some point you agreed. And at some point, your focus shifted to confirming or to finding ways to confirm the things that you agree with. So if you decide today, for example, that the world is a harsh and ugly place, your focus, in order to protect yourself from the harsh and ugly place, is going to be on seeing and recognizing the harsh and ugly first. It's not, I don't want to say it's a self-fulfilling prophecy as much as I want to say it's just the way we are hardwired when it comes down to being able to protect ourselves, whether that's protecting ourselves from physical things or, from physical pain, or protecting ourselves from emotional pain. We're hardwired to pay attention to and notice the negative first, because we need to be able to protect ourselves from it.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. The fight or flight mechanism. That's
right.
Yeah.
Fight, flight, and freeze, because there are those of us who don't necessarily fight the thing, don't necessarily run from the thing, they just freeze in place. So if you need an example, just because that's what I'm here for, of what the freeze can look like, it's not even necessarily just a freezing in place. If one of your defense mechanisms, especially in conversation, is to shut down and say nothing, that's a freeze response. If your reaction is to laugh first, that's a freeze response. Because technically you're laughing, right? So that's not doing nothing. Technically, you don't think you're frozen, but you technically are, because you're not actually saying anything to defend or retreat. You're just maintaining whatever it is that's still going on. So those are your fight, flight, or freeze responses. But yeah, so I don't want to say that it's the simplistic way of looking at it. Yes, you can say it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but that would suggest that we are literally causing ourselves negative things. And that's not accurate either. we don't want to victim blame, right? So we don't want to say, oh, the reason why you got cancer is because you were focused on not getting cancer. That's not how that works. Okay.
Yeah.
We don't want to say that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. What we do want to say is that there are things that happen to us in life, and the reason why they take prominence is because we notice them more often. So when we're having a bad day, it's really, really obvious and really easy to recognize today's a bad day. The car broke down, the rain messed up the whatever, and so forth and so on, right? But in between the car breaking down and the rain messing up the papers, we missed the fact that there was this really cute puppy that passed by and made us smile for 2 seconds. So instead of focusing on, oh, wow, look at that cute puppy, we're stuck on freaking cars broken down and my freaking papers are messed up. Make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So interesting. So kind of going back a little bit to the fight, flight, freeze. How do you help people to get past the freeze?
Get past
what
the
tips?
Freeze?
Yeah. In terms of if they are dealing with whatever a situation and they freeze.
Well, these are defense mechanisms.
Yeah.
Right? These are defense mechanisms. So it's important to understand that most of our defense mechanisms are not things that we technically have control over. They're not conscious decisions.
Okay.
When something bad happens, let's say, for example, you're at a funeral and you laugh, you're not making a conscious decision to say, this situation is funny. No, that's your brain saying this is an uncomfortable situation that we need to defend ourselves from. Laugh, right? And a lot of these defense mechanisms are learned from before we even know that we're learning them.
Gotcha.
So I don't want to suggest again that we're causing some of these things. Some of these things are outside of our control. And especially when it's a situation that's really, really bad or potentially really, really traumatizing, it's even further out of our control because our instincts take control that much more, the stronger the reaction is required. So for example, and I'll self-disclose, I have a thing about masks, right? I don't know what the thing is. It's shit I need to unpack in therapy. I have a thing about masks, especially, when you go to conventions and stuff. For those of you who go to conventions, those really big furry masks, the small ones freak me out too. Don't get it twisted. The small ones freak me out too. And so do really large shoes that don't fit the actual person. So like if a person is walking around without the mask, but they still have the big furry foot on, it still freaks me out. The fact that they're carrying the mask will still freak me out, right?
Gotcha.
And I can have, depending on the situation and my environment, all three of those reactions. I'll give you the example. One Halloween, we went to a haunted house. The person in the mask popped up out of nowhere. I punched her in the face. Literally that was just my instant reaction. She popped up out of nowhere. I punched. And then I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was already scared. There were too many people around me to run, blah, 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 blah. I can make all the different excuses. The woman popped up out of nowhere with a big bunny mask and I punched her in the face. And it was a bunny. I know bunnies aren't supposed to be scary, but it had fangs and listen, it was a situation. Like I said, mask freaked me out. Okay. So fight, right? Flight. My friend, okay, this is my friend, was showing me their Pink Ranger costume. specifically the helmet that they had just ordered and gotten in the mail. I'm looking at my friend in the face. I'm fine. We're sitting on the couch. They're excited, yada, yada, yada. And then they show me the mask. And I kid you not, I retracted and backed away as if they were threatening my life with a knife. Kid you not, that's how it went. As soon as I put the mask on, I just started backing up. And it was completely unconscious. It wasn't a decision to move back. I didn't even notice that I had moved back and retreated so far into the couch that there was a part of me that had actually, like, my arm had sunken into the couch. I didn't even notice any of that had happened until my friend was just like, Shae, what's happening right now? And then they took the mask off and I could physically react or relax. And it wasn't until they took the mask off and I physically relaxed that I recognized, oh my God, I just freaked out. My heart rate is going, like, I freaked out and my heart was racing and all of that because I was afraid unconsciously. And so the reaction was to attempt to flee. So fight, flight, right? This next one is kind of embarrassing, but whatever. The other day, I'm driving down the road and someone, what mask was it? It was like some Disney character or whatever. Big head mask, right? I am driving. Can't stress this enough. I was in my car, in the safety of my car. I am actively driving. And as soon as this person wearing this mask was walking down the sidewalk, my foot hit the brake, slammed on the brake as traffic was actually moving. And it took me a good 3 seconds before I realized that I had stopped because I was unconsciously afraid for my life. How do I combat these things? I've recognized that I have these issues. I do my absolute best when I know I'm going to be in those environments to pace myself and to remind myself that I'm not in danger, that I am okay, that, all of the other things. And for example, in that situation just a couple of days ago when I stopped in traffic, I had to recognize, oh, I'm having this reaction because I'm unreasonably afraid. Let me get my foot off the brake and actually hit the gas. If for no other reason than because it makes more sense for me to be driving away than it does for me to be stopped in traffic, where if this was a dangerous situation, the dangerous masked person would be able to snatch me out of my car and murder me, or whatever it is that my subconscious believes that people in masks or overly large shoes will do. And fears are all irrational and, like I said, are often developed long before we have any consciousness about what those fears might be. But they are what they are. And our defense mechanisms are learned reactions based on both our personal history and, to a certain extent, our genetic history. So you'll find a lot of times that the ways that you react to certain situations, whether it's stressful situations or fearful situations, we will have some of the same kinds of reactions to those situations that our parents did. Either because we learned them literally by watching them have those reactions, or because we learned them, on a genetic level, the same way how even animals who are not, quote unquote, raised by whoever spawned them, they instinctively know what danger is supposed to look, smell, feel, taste like. Like they know what, like a snake knows what kinds of animals that it's not supposed to eat instinctively. It doesn't have to eat the poisonous frog first to know that's something that's not a species of frog that it can eat. A dog instinctively knows that, one blade of grass over a different one, that one is poison ivy and the other one isn't, and just instinctively knows not to do that. But they'll eat their own poo, which is just weird. But it is what it is. So it's some of it is our baser instincts when it comes to those defense mechanisms, and we can teach ourselves to have more productive defense mechanisms, but to a certain extent, those original defense mechanisms are always going to be in place to protect us. So we can learn conversation, and we can learn logic, and we can learn reason, and we can learn I'm not actually in any danger right now, so I don't need to be afraid of the masked thing or whatever you're afraid of, or whatever makes you anxious or uneasy. You can learn different ways to have that inner conversation with yourself, to a point where you do get to stop yourself from fighting, fleeing, or freezing. And if you don't, if you find that there are those times where, despite your best efforts, you still revert to some of those defense mechanisms, it's not necessarily, it doesn't say that there's something wrong with you. It just means that this was an extreme situation that you are still having to default to. Nothing wrong, so to speak, with that. And it should also be noted that our defense mechanisms, like I said, are put in place either by instinct, genetic line, or learned, nature and nurture, in order to protect us. And space has to be given to understand that we are still soft and squishy people. And in order to protect our soft and squishy selves, we need to be able to give ourselves space to do exactly that. And also, we should also be willing to let others protect and help us defend our soft and squishy selves. If we are in a position where we're feeling defenseless, or we're feeling, more to the point of this subject, undeserving of whatever positive thing is happening at the moment, or deserving of whatever negative thing that's happening at the moment, it's really important to recognize that there are those in our lives who know better and who can remind you, because you chose them, right? And they can remind you, hey, you're okay. You're in a safe place, and you are deserving and worthy of feeling safe in this space. You are deserving and worthy of feeling or receiving the love that you are asking for. You are worthy, you are deserving of whatever it is positively that you are asking for, especially when it comes to safety. Can't stress that part enough. Especially if what you're asking for is safety. When you are in doubt, there are those in your life, whether you know that they are there or not, who were chosen specifically for their ability to remind you that you're okay.
Yeah, that's really important. I think someone else posted today, if you remember nothing else today, remember that you are worthy. And it's, little posts like that, when I'm scrolling, I'm like, okay, that's something that I needed to hear, today. So I think we all need reminders, because you get so caught up in the daily grind and all of the challenges that, I mean, it's a hectic world right now. So it's, sometimes you
Hectic,
just,
scary.
yes.
You know, for those of us who pay attention, we are officially at war right now.
Yes.
Because I guess that's what we needed. And so once again, we are in a scary situation. The gas prices are about to go up and people's anxieties are going to be high. And all of a sudden, myself included, everybody's going to decide that they need gas, toilet paper, and water today because they've never seen gas, toilet paper, or water before. So running to the gas station to make sure you have gas, running to the supermarket to make sure you have water and toilet paper. Let me just tell you, if you've lived through COVID and you're still short on toilet paper, sirs, ma'ams, you have not learned anything over the last few years.
Yes.
I'm just going to throw that out there. We've been living in this post-COVID world for 2 years now. We should have learned water and toilet paper. Have them just cause.
Yeah.
If you have an extra corner somewhere, anywhere in your house or apartment, there should be water and toilet paper in that corner.
That's right.
That's right. If you don't learn anything else, you don't want to put on a mask, you don't want to wash your hands, you don't want to use sanitizer, you want to be out there breathing all willy-nilly, by all means, do you. Have some toilet paper and some water in your house, please. If nothing else, have that.
Yes.
Goodness. And get therapy.
Yes, absolutely. Therapy is important. Yes. All righty. Well, thank you so much for being here. I apologize for I don't know what was going on my computer. It's probably still going to do it. I had to restart the whole thing. So hopefully that will solve the issues.
It seems to have solved the issue because I can actually have a conversation with you now.
I know. I feel so bad. Like I unintentionally left you solo.
It's okay. It's okay. Things happen. Yes. And, if anybody who is listening wants to have this conversation again, send the boss lady there a message, and I will definitely not promise that we'll have the same conversation.
Oh yeah,
I'm more than happy to go off the dome and give you whatever other insights or thoughts that I can provide. But I wanted to definitely have this conversation because apparently people don't know that they deserve everything that they deserve.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends on whether or not they've decided they deserve it.
Right. Yep. Going back to your point about you're the only person who can determine and demand your worth, right? So
that's right.
Whatever you determine that to be, that's what you're gonna get, because that's what your mind's gonna say that's what it is. So
yeah.
If
something good happens to you and you decide that you don't deserve it, you're not gonna trust the good thing.
Yep. In there.
That big sack of money can fall right now and just be like, yeah, the big sack of money fell, but somebody's going to come right now and shoot me over it. Really? That's where we're going to go with this? Yep, that's how people think. I am handing you the answer to the entire universe. I'm just going to forget it tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's how people think.
I hate when that happens. Stop it.
Hey, that's what it is.
Yeah. All righty.
I definitely hope that, like I said, that having this conversation, this dialogue, listening to me prattle on for however many minutes was actually helpful.
It absolutely was. Of course, for me, I feel like I was on an old AOL connection. but I'm definitely going to watch the replay and hear the things that I missed. So once again, appreciate you coming on. Do we have a topic for next month? Do you know what you're going to talk about next month? Or are we still working on that? I didn't have a chance to look at our notes. So,
on the invite that I have for next month, it does not already have a topic.
Okay, so we're gonna come up with one, guys.
Or, whoever's watching this can send in ideas.
Yes,
I will literally talk about anything, anytime, any day. Just tell me what you want to talk about. And if it's something that I don't know about, I guess we'll learn about it together.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. So I will, I'm going to take a note and we'll send an email out to our viewers to see if there's any topics that they would want to talk about specifically. And guys, if you're watching, drop them in the comments because that's the fastest way. I don't have to go dig in emails. But yeah, if you have ideas on other topics or areas where you would like to learn more or something that you're struggling with personally, you don't have to tell us that, but you can just suggest a topic and we can help you along with that. That's the whole point of this podcast, is to help our listeners work through some of the challenges that we're all faced as human beings, So we appreciate that. So
one thing, just I want to make sure that we know, usually we're on the last Thursday of the month because March has, I guess, 2 lasts.
Mm-hmm.
Thursdays. Next month, we're actually doing the 4th Thursday, which is not technically the last Thursday.
Yes, it will be March 24th. I believe it's the same time, 7 p.m.
Yep, same time.
Yep. So tune in then for our next episode of Rain Talks. And in about 30 minutes, we are going to have our second show for the evening. We are going to celebrate the 28 days of Black cosplay. We have a wonderful panel of friends coming on. Cece the Geek is going to be our guest moderator tonight. And we have a great panel. We have the Yarn Goddess, we have Bar Fox, and we have 2 others, and their names are messing me up right now. But tune in at 8:30 and you get to meet them. I will have my notes in order. The technical difficulties tonight threw me off my game. But thank you all for tuning in. If you have not yet subscribed and if you have enjoyed the content tonight, please subscribe to us here on YouTube, Facebook, and or Twitch. We stream live every Thursday at 7 and 8:30 p.m. Thank you all for joining us, and we hope you have a great evening and a great rest of the week. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will.
If this the land of the free, it was a freedom then. When they annexed Hawaii and called it Cedar Lands, without any type of payment and no signing off. Called themselves a republic in 1894. 1.2 million acres overtaken from the native Hawaiians. When they resisted, the West retaliated in violence and erasure. The Hawaiian language is banned as part of colonialism's plan to expand,
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. No regard for all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.
So if you put Hawaii into perspective, well, Black and Asian history is interconnected. Considering the fight with the Pacific, then and of course, versus Asia, they was treated as a middleman for war, but didn't let the Western colorism run its course, cause dark skin was a sign of dignity to core. The land was taken in the name of capitalism, when prior to it was an actual kingdom. Clap back at the system. Stuck between a rock and a hard place, multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe, as a part of their ongoing war with Asia, used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation, colonizers call for annexation. Network out for all the locals, school will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf, if we won't tell it we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf, if we won't tell it we will. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf, if we won't tell it we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf, if we won't tell it we will. We will.
I'm Steve Bloom. I've been a voice actor for more than 30 years, playing characters like Wolverine, Starscream, Tank Dempsey from Call of Duty.
With Bloomfox Studios, I've learned so much about myself.
Learning to breathe, to no fear, to getting ugly in front of the mic.
One of the biggest changes I've noticed, at least for me, is how much my confidence level has gone up.
Done an Eastern European video game, an e-commerce commercial, a documentary. If you're thinking about getting into voiceover, just do it. Jump in.